Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan, recently announced it would offer its language students a major concentration in translation and interpretation this coming fall. Aquinas becomes the first college in Michigan to offer such a major, and here to tell us about it is Michel Pichot. Michel is Associate Professor of French at Aquinas College and a native of France. Michel, bienvenue. Welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Merci, thank you very much.
So glad to have you here. So in the news, Aquinas is making this bold step forward. Tell us about this new innovation for the language program.
Yes, we've been developing by the direction of our dean, provost, Dr. Hilda Helly, and she asked us, the Department of World Languages, to create this new major. And so we've done it. We've worked very hard with my colleagues in German and Spanish and created a program. And then it was accepted by a special committee called the Committee on Studies, and was approved finally by Faculty Assembly and the president of the college. And so here we have it. We have a Bachelor of Science in Translation and Interpretation with 3 languages.
Before we get started, we need to know, our viewers need to know, what's the difference between translation and interpretation? Because people get those confused.
Now, translation, you're dealing with written text. So the source text, any source text can be in German, Spanish, or French, or other languages. For our program, we're dealing with source text, which could be of a variety of genre. And then we translate those in writing into English. So it's really, we're dealing with written material. In interpreting, it's oral translation, if I can say this, where someone is speaking and then in a foreign language, and then you interpret it, you translate it into English or to another language.
So interpretation is live and translation is all by yourself in front of your computer.
Exactly.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. So what is the benefit for students to have this kind of concentration in addition to having a French major or a Spanish or German major?
Well, according to the Department of Labor Statistics, it is the fastest growing area as far as jobs are concerned. There's a big need overall in the United States because of the increasing globalization of the country, and also in Michigan.
So there's a real need.
Yes.
So parents of liberal arts students should actually take heart that their son or daughter who is taking, say, German has real career options.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So what are some applications? Where are some concentrated areas to focus?
For example, for Spanish, in the medical area, since we are a medical research center in Grand Rapids, there's a great need for interpreters. And they're really, they don't have enough. So that's a possibility, that's a potential here. For French, we deal with Quebec in trade, in finance. So companies need translators also to translate their documents into French or to be able to understand them from a French source. So they need translators to translate them into English. For German, it's the same. Trade is big also with Germany, and yes, so there is a need for translators. Actually, companies hire in-house translators now. There are companies that that are translating companies or interpreting companies, but more and more we're seeing a growing trend where companies hire in-house translators.
As opposed to hire a contract agency,
Yes.
you actually hire that person and bring them in-house, so they're working for you full-time, because there is really that much work.
Yes.
That's really awesome. And again, heartening for parents who thought before, what's my son or daughter doing with a degree in Spanish literature? Not that there aren't some career avenues, but it certainly broadens there. So what does the typical course encompass?
Well, you have 3 areas. You have the language component, and for the language, they do up to an advanced low level at the undergraduate level. And then there is the applied language, the specialized language, courses in translation. teaching the students how to translate, so methods courses on how to translate. And for the Spanish program, we have also interpreting courses, medical interpretation, community interpretation. For German and French, translation for the moment, we hope to grow into interpreting eventually in the future. Then there is an internship component. There's a course where we want our students, if there are interpreters, to shadow an interpreter in a healthcare services, for example, and also for translation. We're hoping to place our students in various positions where they can have some sort of internship.
So this is also part of your background work. You need to line up companies
Yes.
who are looking for this sort of student to
Yeah.
both support and maybe
Yeah.
test them out to see
Yes.
if they might be future employees.
Absolutely. And then they need to specialize in an area. They need to specialize in an area. The important areas right now are in the sciences, legal studies, business. So they take a minor or a major in biology, for example, if they're interested in health sciences. What they're doing there is getting the terminology, the vocabulary, and the knowledge of that field.
Because if you're going to be translating, for example, chemical engineering,
Yes.
you need to know some basic things about chemistry.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. So I want to turn the story around a little bit because you are kind of a second career person. You weren't originally planning on being a language professor.
No, not originally. It's true. It's true. When I did my Master of Arts in Language and International Trade at Eastern Michigan University, I was very interested in the import-export area. And then circumstances came along where particularly a professor, she encouraged me to continue into teaching. She thought that I would be great at teaching. I had absolutely no intent to go into teaching at that point.
So no teachers in your family background?
Actually, yes. My father is a professor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was in the genes, but you were
Yes.
maybe repressing that.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So talk about that time of transition where you were at Eastern Michigan University.
Yes, so I was actually in France looking for a position because when I came to the United States, I was on an F1 visa from France, and my intent was to study a few years in the United States and then go back to France. And when I was there, during that summer, I had organized a study abroad program for our students at Eastern Michigan University, and I was there with a professor of French, and at the same time I was looking for a position. And I was a bit discouraged, perhaps, I couldn't find anything. But then he said, well, Michigan State University has an opening for a teaching assistant in French. And if you're interested, I can contact, my colleagues there. And he did. And I got the position very late in the year, which was in August. Yes, so I began as a TA, and as soon as I started teaching, I just fell in love with the profession as a teaching assistant.
Because most of us would stereotype France. It's very romantically, the culture, the cuisine.
Yes.
And you left there to come to Michigan to work.
Yeah.
So what works for you here in the United States and specifically in Michigan?
In Michigan, well, I love what I do as a professor at Aquinas College. I love the environment. Grand Rapids in particular, the culture that is there, and the geography too. I mean, we're very close to a beautiful lake, and it's a beautiful area to be. Yeah.
What do French people miss when they're not in France?
I think the old stones and the castles, also a certain cuisine, certain little things, a bakery where you have excellent pastry, also the cafe setting and these streets, these shops, and and hearing, particularly for me, hearing the language too. I mean, we're in France, you hear the language, and that's something that I miss and that I look forward to when I go back. Yeah.
So how do you get your French fix in between with language and food?
Oh, perhaps an occasional French meal, I listen to French news a lot, so I'm in contact with France that way. French programs, French films. Yeah.
Sure. When you're making this transition from France to the United States, there are always some adjustments. What's difficult for Europeans in general and French in particular, living and working in U.S. culture?
That's a good question. I didn't see that much. There weren't. It's interesting to look at the differences. I think citizens or individuals, when they come from France, I think we're able to adapt very quickly to the American society. There isn't that much difference, really, as far as, for example, going shopping or, for food or for you find everything that you want here, and you can cook whatever you want, at your house. So there isn't, apart from the language. Yeah, that's a good question. Perhaps I've been in the United States too long now. I'm trying to think what differences.
What shocks visitors when they come to see you?
When they come to see us?
Yes, when they come to see you here. They say, "Oh my goodness, U.S. We never had no idea."
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's perhaps no, I wouldn't say the climate, but the architecture. I mean, it's very different. Individual homes like we have here. I think also something that shocks for the secular mind in France, because the French are very secular, is the number of churches that there are here in the United States. They're surprised to see so many churches here. I think that's one thing that I remember of European friends when they come here. Yeah, they notice.
And actually, they're functioning churches, as opposed to in Europe, most of them are just monuments and historical buildings.
Yeah.
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Before we wrap up, I'd like to explore this notion of belonging. It's a theme of our show. How does one know when one belongs?
I think when you have friends, when you come back from Europe, in my case, and you feel home because you're happy with your job and the environment that you live with. Perhaps also, in my case, having children here, having gone through the system, and so yeah, I feel that I'm very well at home in Grand Rapids. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last question: what advice do you have for new immigrants coming to the U.S.?
I think it's good that you quickly integrate by making friends, by socializing, by understanding, trying to learn as much as possible about the culture that you're going to be in. The language is very important too, to study it, and that's what we tell our friends, is to make as much contacts as possible. I think television is a very good way to do that. Watching local television, you get an idea, a feel of the accent, of what's important, what's being talked about, and yeah, that's one good way.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming by today and talking with us.
You're very welcome.
And I want to wish you good luck, in particular with your new program at Aquinas, and maybe in another year or two, come back and bring one or two of your student success stories with you, and we'll look forward to hear how they're doing out there in the world.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
It is always a learning opportunity, and we studied standard English, standard conversation, standard grammatical rules and others. All these slangs and other, these things are all new to me. And sometimes people say something, I said, I don't know what that means.